Salve te omnes! This is Ms. Abelseth, Magistra Abelseth, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing the content for Latin 2, where we were discussing the noun commentary, the Eutropius vocabulary study, and starting to go over the Eutropius translation part 1. The vocab study is what I will start with. So I've given you a blank goal 0. You're welcome to use it if you want, but you don't have to. If you do use it, you only have to do one side. You can do both sides if you want to do both. Each one will give you a separate grade. It doesn't hurt to have extra grades ready to go in case something comes up later, but it's not necessary. You also only need to have a minimum of 15 words. I do encourage you to do more rather than less, but if you're strapped for time or you've got something else going on and you need to do a little less, that's okay. The minimum is 15 words. You also have the option to, if you do this, you can do this with a partner, a person, a friend, someone that you are with in person. You can do this with someone over the phone. You can also do this on your own. When you type your text in here, Latin word, grammar, and then what it means in English. If you want to quiz yourself, you can highlight the boxes that you have to memorize. Use the fill color black, make it the same color as the text, and then click outside the box and now you can't see. So you look at the Latin word, you give it your best guess, and then you highlight the information and it gives you what the answers are, and then you give yourself your score. Remember that it's like golf. You don't want points. For an immediate correct answer, it's 0. For a correct answer after a pause or you had to think about it, that's a 1. For a correct answer after a hint or a long pause or a hesitation, that's a 2. Or if you get it partially correct and partially incorrect, then it's a 2. If your answer is completely incorrect or you don't have an answer, or you just don't know, that's a 3. After you finish, you add up all of your points from the column and make your total. Once you have your total, what I'll do in the gradebook is I'll take 100, I'll subtract your total. Let's say your total points was 9. That leaves 91. So your grade in the gradebook would be a 91%. That's how this is scored and calculated. Please do not put check marks in here. It's not yes or no. It's a scoring system. You're also more than welcome to do more than 3 attempts. If you get the score that you want on the first attempt, that's great, and you don't have to do any more than that. If you do 3 attempts and you're still not happy, you can continue to do as many attempts as you want until you have the score that you want. I don't need to know what your worst score is. I only need to know what your best score is. I'm only going to put your best score in the gradebook. Okay. So the other thing that I want to, oh, and then the vocabulary words themselves. This is a long list. You do not have to do all of them right now. I do want you to focus on the nouns for right now. And of these nouns, there are 21. So hopefully some of these words you remember or are familiar to you. If not, that's okay. Pick 15 to 20 of these nouns that you want to spend your time memorizing and work on those. We will be working on verbs after we finish nouns. There's only 14 of those. And then the rest of these 10 adjectives, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 adverbs, 3 prepositions, and 3 pronouns. So you're welcome to group these in whatever way makes sense to you. The vocabulary assignment is due, the vocab study is due on Monday by midnight. If you do not want to use a goal 0, you do not have to use a goal 0. You can take a picture of flashcards if you're using physical note card flashcards. Show me the pile of words that you have memorized and the pile of words that you're still working on. Give me a rough idea of how many words you have memorized and how many words you're still working on. It doesn't have to be exact. You can also create a Quizlet for yourself. You can write the words over and over again. What I'm looking for is some kind of confirmation that you have in fact studied your vocabulary. The second assignment that you have ongoing right now is the noun commentary. This one is not due until October 5th, so you have more time for that. With the noun commentary, what I want you to do when it loads, okay, identify 25 nouns and their cases. So remember how we were doing those noun review activities before with the noun charts? This is where you would need to go if you're unsure about what the ending might be. And then when you're working on this, you can just create a numbered list. And for example, romam is accusative. Make sure that the nouns that you're working with are coming directly from this passage somewhere. You only need a total of 25. However, you do need to have at least one of every case. One thing I do want to remind you to be aware of is something like romai, because that AE could be nominative plural, genitive singular, or dative singular. In that case, you need to look at the context of the surrounding sentence and determine, based on that context, whether this noun is most likely to be a nominative plural, a genitive singular, or a dative singular. As you're working on context, you can review these notes. And down here, you have the formulaic translations. So as you're working on recognizing that context, you can look at the sentence as a whole and decide which of these translation phrases makes the most sense in that sentence. That translation phrase will correspond to a case, and that will help you determine based on context whether that AE is genitive, dative, or nominative. Okay. In class today, we did also take a look at the translation for this passage. We talked about it sort of briefly, so I'm going to go through it quickly now for the purpose of this video. We will be going through this translation again more than once in class. I have removed the deadline for this assignment. So this translation piece no longer has a deadline attached to it. I changed my mind about what we were doing and I decided I wanted to focus more on the grammar commentary, and we'll work on the translation later. We'll do the grammar commentaries first. So this translation goes as follows. Post civitatem Romam condidit, after he founded the city Rome, Romulus multitudinem finitimorum in civitatem recepit. Romulus received a multitude of neighbors into the city. Etiam centum ex senioribus legit. And he chose 100 from the old people, quos senatores nominavit propter senectutem, whom he named or called senators because of their old age. So that whole sentence altogether. After he founded the city Rome, Romulus received a multitude of neighbors into the city, and he chose or selected from the old men. He selected 100 of the old men, whom he called senators because of their old age. So the word senator means elder or old person. Tum, quod Romani uxores non habuerant. Then, because the Romans had not had wives, invitaverunt ad spectaculum ludorum vicinas urbi Romae nationes atque earum virgines rapuit. The Romans invited the neighboring nations to a spectacle of games. They invited the neighboring nations to a spectacle of games at the city Rome, and Rome stole, raped, kidnapped their maidens. So at this point, we had a brief discussion in class about how this was not cool of the Romans. the Romans have a long history of solving their problems by violence. One of the arguments that is made sometimes in Roman literature about this event is that nobody wanted to betroth their or marry their daughters or their maidens to the Romans, because the Romans were thieves and burglars, and um, that they were just mean and not nice, and they didn't have much money. They weren't um, they were barely even shepherds. That kind of language is how that was talked about. And the idea that is presented in the Roman literature is that the Romans had no choice but to take these wives by force, um, to steal or kidnap these young women by force. And that just, it rings a little hollow for me as as an argument, because you could try being nice, you could try being kind, and maybe go from there. And if nobody wants to marry you, maybe you just have to take no for an answer. So today we can look at this and we can judge this morally by our own standards today. We can also recognize and acknowledge that the Romans had a different perspective. We are free to judge that perspective in a way that makes sense to us as well. Haec omnia opida urbem pugnaverunt, sed ea Romani vicerunt. All of these towns, all of the towns, fought the city, but the Romans conquered them. Anno regni 37 ad Deos transivit Romulus, qui Deum nominaverunt. In the 37th year of his rule, Romulus crossed over to the gods, who will have named him a god. Here we pause to have a brief discussion about the death of Romulus, and how when he died, there's two different stories. One is that there was this terrible lightning storm and he wandered outside and got swept away by the wind and the lightning, and the gods took him into the clouds. Another version of the story is that the senators assassinated him. So, oh, and then his name as a god. When he was deified, the Romans deified him because they had a very strong culture of honoring their ancestors, and of honoring father figures particularly. They were very much a patriarchy. So Romulus being the first king, socially he was like everybody's dad. Politically, he was like everybody's dad. And then when he died, he was like everybody's dad, and he was the first one. So he had a place in Roman cultural worship, Roman religious worship, specifically for Romans and mostly for Italian Romans. His deified name was Quirinus. And every once in a while he gets mentioned as Quirinus in various pieces of literature and texts. The rest of the kings were not deified the way that Romulus was, although depending on an individual Roman, if he counted any of those kings as one of his ancestors, or if he felt a particular kinship with them, he might have some sort of statue or memento, something in his personal or her personal altar, to honor or venerate that particular king as an ancestor of sorts. But none of them had the cult following that Romulus Quirinus had. So that was Romulus. Our second paragraph in this passage. Numa Pompilius erat rex secundus, qui bellum nullum gesset. Numa Pompilius was the second king who waged no war. Autem leges Romanis moresque constituit, et infinita Romae sacra ac templa constituit. However, he set up or established the laws and the customs for the Romans, dative Romanis, for the Romans. And he established, constituit, infinita, many, infinite sacra, religious rites, ac templa, and physical temples, Romae, for Rome, again dative. Morbo decessit quadragesimo et tertio imperii anno. He died of disease. He died from disease, by disease, because of disease, in the 43rd year of his rule.